We'll start the class on white magic, and he's talking about various groups and movements that's going to bring in the new age. And he tells us as disciples that we're supposed to seek out other people that's on the same note that we are. Um, so I think that's what we're doing in this group right here. We've sought out other people that's on a similar note to ourselves. And this is one of the problems with the New Age groups that's out there is it seems like every one of them is on a little bit different note. And they're not cooperating with each other that as much as they intended. DK threw out the idea that, or the hope that by the time we're in now, that there would be a lot of cooperation with groups that supported his ideas, that they would be sharing information, working together, and promoting goodwill throughout the planet. And he wanted very much, he says, the salvation of the planet depends on goodwill. And he says the disciples of the world need to cooperate together on promoting goodwill. And instead, we have kind of like on an individual basis, it's every man for themselves, but on a group basis, it's every group for themselves. And each group is pretty much doing their own thing. And there's very little cooperation in promoting goodwill. Instead, we have the promotion of political division like we've never seen it before on the planet. And it would be great if we had power to create some type of organization to teach people the importance of goodwill, that even though you disagree with somebody politically or religiously or whatever, that we still need to focus on the good that is in each one of us and promote goodwill to all people, whether they agree with us or not. Because we all agree on certain things we have in common. And the problem with humanity today is we're focusing on what we don't have in common rather than what we do have in common. And as human beings, we have a lot more in common than we don't have in common. You just talk to any one of your neighbors out there, and you don't bring up religion or politics. You have the impression, hey, this is a pretty nice person. But then maybe if he talks about who he voted for in the last election, all of a sudden everything changes. And but you take these differences out of the equation and look at people as human beings, it's a lot easier to have goodwill. And I think the hierarchy is kind of disappointed in how little progress we made in promoting goodwill, which he was hoping that by this time there would be like major impetus to create organizations of goodwill, that there would be a lot of intercooperation and good feeling among humanity, that good things were around the corner. And instead, we have a little bit, quite a bit, the opposite. But it's never too late to turn things around, and this is an important thing for us to do. And if we ever get the power, in the meantime, we have power as individuals, small amount of power, and it's sometimes frustrating that, there's 7 billion people in the world, and each of us maybe has power to influence just a very small handful. But on the other hand, if you look at it this way, if everybody does their part, then everybody gets influence for good. So we have to begin with ourselves and then with those we're connected with, and
Hey,
not
JJ,
not not think about how limited we are, but by what we can actually do. Yeah, Blaine.
can I make a comment? I th- I actually think that what he's talking about is going on. It just not doesn't look like we kind of expected it to look like with groups that were endeared more to um, the Alice Bailey books. There's a lot of groups out there that are promoting goodwill and helping each other and looking to the future for a better future and thinking that there's I think it depends on where you put your focus. Now, I guess I don't know. I guess if you took a measurement, you could maybe say it's not where it needs to be. But I see a expansion of consciousness on many levels, and just because some people aren't on a level that we are somewhat spiritually or intellectually, they're still expanding their consciousness and moving forward from where they are. And I think there's a great awakening going on. I see it all over. I'm probably in like 150 different groups.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I don't look at all of them, but I see posts from them now and then, and I see a lot of this going on, and it's very encouraging. I
Yeah,
think,
this is one thing. Yeah, there is, like you say, there's a lot going on below the surface. Now, on the surface, we have tremendous political division we haven't seen since the Civil War, and that needs to be rectified. But like you say, there are below the surface, below the radar, a lot of good people, and they're connecting on Facebook. That's one positive thing about Facebook and the internet is people are making connections. And like I've organized a group for my graduating high school class, and we don't talk about politics there, but everybody has a really good feeling about everybody else, and we don't talk about politics or religion. But
there's a lot of self-improvement groups out there, from business to relationship to even the spiritual, like Mind Valley. Uh, Most of you have probably heard of Mind Valley. They're the biggest, one of the biggest groups on Facebook, and they promote a lot of goodwill in all those areas. And but there's a lot of groups like that. There's some small. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that. I think it's where you put your focus, and I don't put my focus on politics anymore like I used to. In fact, I rarely do because I don't want to be focused on a lot of the
yeah, you made a
negativity.
180-degree turn there, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very freeing and liberating. I keep an eye on things once in a while, but so I have to turn it off after a while. It's like, okay, you know,
Yeah, I remember when I first met you, you thought the world was going to hell in a handbasket, right?
yeah, yeah, I did. Now I think the future is bright. I think that we're on the road to a bright future. I mean, yeah, but if you put your focus and you teach this too, where you put your attention, you'll find what you're looking for.
Right,
And so,
right.
take the challenge and look for the good in all things for the next 3 weeks and see what you
Yeah,
find.
there's a lot of people that do like the principle of goodwill and are trying to focus on it. And the media is doing everything they can to make us focus on the negative. And so we kind of have to bypass that. And like I say, as individuals, we need to overcome that feeling of powerlessness. And I think when I first met you, Blaine, you felt a little powerless, to not enough power to do anything,
Oh yeah,
and now you feel more empowered because you're looking at what you actually can do rather than what you can't do. And
yeah.
so there's always certain things that we can do, and that's what we need to focus on. And if everybody does what they can do, then the world will be taken care of. And so it's true that we don't have power to go in there and create get the attention of the world or the nation or even our state maybe, but we do have some power to promote goodwill and and move the
I'll take it a step.
consciousness ahead.
I'll take it
Yeah.
a step further. I believe we do have the power to change the world. We just don't believe we do.
Yeah.
And I think that with politics and everything, that's part of it. There's going to have to be some more shakeup than the whole Trump and Brexit thing have done. But anyways, I'll let it go at that. But take the challenge. The next 3 weeks, no matter what the situation is, look for the good in it and stop and turn off politics for a little bit. See what you find.
Yeah. And if
Report
you
back.
do, right, if everybody, if people take the right steps, there can be big opportunities surface. And we may not have a big opportunity right now, but if we keep our eyes open and be positive, as Blaine is admonishing us,
Right.
uh,
It's the old Joseph Smith thing. If you're anxiously engaged in a good cause, the opportunities and circumstances will align to help to give you that opportunity eventually to change the world.
right, and that's an important point, and we need to keep our eyes open for those opportunities that come. Okay, move
Yeah,
ahead
just
here. Yeah,
I have the complete opposite almost for a half year. I have felt like a keyboard warrior for Trump the last half year, actually.
yeah,
I don't know why, don't ask me, but I felt that really pushed to send all this attention and stand up for his for the respect of the president. And I mean, I think I deserve the green card soon.
Oh, really? Are you going to move to the United States someday?
I I don't know. It's just it has been a very powerful thing for me, and I was not interested in Trump at all to begin with. And now I'm really in this fight for him, verbally and not involving in like a war, but I think it's very important also to try to confront all this hate,
Yeah,
Somebody,
no matter who our leaders are, we need to focus on the the positive things rather than the negative, and that's where
yeah,
we need to change the consciousness of the whole world, really, because the whole world is focusing, the whole political world anyway, the the things below the radar that Blaine is talking about. There's a lot of good things going on there, but uh, that which is below the radar needs to rise up and neutralize some of the negativity that's out there. Okay,
yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
was just going to say, yeah, Blaine, there are hundreds of groups out there, and they're all engaged in good works and good causes. And you look at each group as a circle, and in that middle of that circle, there's some authoritative figure that's leading it. What Joe is saying is that getting the leaders of these groups together is what's the difficult challenge. They have a separative attitude. Somehow they've got some part of the vision and they've glommed onto it and claimed it, but they're not willing to connect and join hands with other groups. I've gone to some groups and introduced the molecular concept and some ideas, and I got nowhere. Just so yeah, they're doing their thing. They're like seed groups out there growing. But the step that Joe's talking about is getting these different separative groups to become one group and to see eye to eye. I think that's a challenge.
at least having similar goals they support each other in.
I think you hit an important point, Curtis, that they're seed groups and they're raising that consciousness until it can come to a level where they can start coming together more. There are
Right.
some groups that are becoming more open, but you're right. Yeah, you know, this is our group, and don't tell us anything about your groups. There's some of that going on too, but more and more people are being more and more open. I'm in a group that was like that, but they finally came out and said, you know, if you have another group that's doing similar work to us, go ahead and put it in here. And I thought, finally, we're moving forward, you know.
Yeah.
And they're a rather large group. I think they have 100,000 people in it, you know. So
What group is that?
that's spiritual awakening. So
Well, it's important to establish common ground. That's for sure.
and I've been posting stuff in there for years, and I post some of Joe's stuff in there, and it's usually pretty well received. So
Yeah. It's funny. A couple of years ago, we had a Keys member for our Keys group think it would be a good idea if we cooperated with another group out there, and he was a member of this Gnostic group, which is kind of controlled by a very authoritarian mystic, and he thought it'd be great if we like cooperated together. And I wasn't too hip on the idea because the consciousness of the leader was quite a bit different than my own, but I thought, well, if he wants to try it, we'll give it a try. So when I made a post or two in his group and he made a post or two in my group, I said some small thing that really offended him. And boy, he just started attacking me like crazy. And he just laid into me like you wouldn't believe. And we went around and around for a few months and finally called it off. And what that kind of teaches us is that, you know, you need to, if you're going to cooperate with another group, you have to have at least some things in common, and you have to have both members of both groups wanting to come to the middle. This group that we were hooked up with, they wanted us to come completely to their view, and they thought our view was basically from the devil. So it just didn't work out. But that idea that our member had, matter of fact, he became so frustrated I never heard from him again. But that idea he had was pretty good. We should have more groups trying that, but it should be groups that are on the same page. It was like people from the mystical view and the more mental occultist esoteric view, they don't they tend to somewhat clash, like sixth ray and seventh ray and first ray. You get them together, you're going to have a problem. So you need to have at least a couple of the rays in common, but it's a major difficulty to get two groups together. Maybe we ought to try that again sometime if anyone has. Now we have our Keys group out there. If anyone has any idea of any other group that we might experiment with again, I'd always be open to it. The trouble is, if you have a very authoritarian leader that wants to show his people that he's in charge, it makes it very difficult for interplay. Yeah, somebody had a point.
The esoteric, the ancient wisdom esoteric groups that are into DK and HPB and so on seem to be the most separative of all.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah, and so I promptly got kicked off of a Hermetic group, I don't know, about a year or so ago. I think you got on there just as I got kicked off or something. Yeah. But because I presented, something a little different. They wanted to stick 100% to Hermetics, and it didn't say that in their description. And I try to read the description and follow the rules, because I don't. And I went round and round, and it's the same thing. The leader, he was gathering devotees, and wasn't complying with being a devotee, and introduced a few new ideas, and it wasn't long before he kicked me out of there. So.
Yeah, I've got kicked off of about 8 esoteric groups that support Alice A. Bailey and Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah.
And I've done very little on the groups. All I got to do is just go make a comment or two, innocent comments, and I get kicked off.
What kind of comments do you make, Joe?
Well, he posted the last one. You can read it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that say about what you're posting?
Yeah, like I got kicked off the last one because let me see, what did I do?
That was the Blavatsky, Bailey, Rourke.
Oh, I expanded. The administrator made a post, and I just merely amplified it a little bit. And I didn't. I thought I was being supportive, giving complimentary information, and I give some quotes from DK that kind of a little bit disagreed with him, but not in a negative way. And then he deleted my post, and I merely asked him, well, what'd you delete my post for? And then he deleted me. And then I complained to him, and then he put me back on. So that was good.
What was the upshot of that? I mean, I remember you were saying it was like, was it really going to be worth it anymore if it was so, you know, you had to walk on eggshells? Did he say anything about like changing his mind, or is it potentially just a waste to post things over there?
No, he didn't say anything about changing his mind. He admitted he runs a tight ship. And but most of them are that way. All these groups run a pretty tight ship. Now, I'm still a member of 3 or 4 esoteric groups, but I'm very careful not to post anything controversial in them because I'd like to stay in them. And but anyway, a couple of them I got kicked off for posting my quotes. I post my quotes, and one of them asked me to quit posting them, and I says okay, and I quit posting them, and a little while later they still threw me off. And so even though I wasn't posting anything, so I don't know, some of them are very separative. The theosophical ones, I don't know why they threw me off, but maybe it's because I'm getting a reputation out there. Maybe just my name is.
I think you're barking up the wrong tree. You go there thinking you're going to find some people who'll be interested in your stuff because you're very big on the DK stuff, but they're not open. They're like Bible thumpers. They're not open to anything outside of what their interpretation of what he is saying is. And so you get more people like me. I didn't even know who DK was until I met you. So
right. The solid DK students were not getting too many of them. I've started a new group, Enlightened Quotes and Ancient Wisdom, and it's gathering in quite a few people who just started, and we already got about 200 members. But I notice the people coming in are not member. It tells us when they sign up what groups they're members of, and most of them aren't associated with any esoteric groups. Most of them are associated with more type of groups Blaine talks about there. And so I'm not drawing in the serious esoteric students. I'm drawing in people that are just wanting more light and truth, so to speak. So that's kind of interesting. But anyway, this separate group is to teach more heavily and to emphasize more into the Alice A. Bailey teachings. So it'll be interesting to see how that does. So the Keys groups is more just a net to get people that's interested in New Age things, and then the other one will be people that want to go a little bit deeper into the Bailey and Blavatsky teachings.
JJ?
Yeah.
I think I remember that. I think it was you who said once that the last people who would come over would be the New Agers. All the Christians and the religious people would be easier to get a hold of. Didn't you say that once?
I wouldn't be surprised. Now, the Christians that are a little bit dissatisfied with the regular preachers are the ones that are good prospects. The ones that are really into the authority, whether it be esoteric or Christians, they will be the last ones, right?
So maybe the Bible groups or some of the a little bit Christian groups would be a good place to go also.
Yeah, you never know. Just that's a great part about Facebook. Hopefully, we don't get kicked out of Facebook. They're kind of on a warpath now too. All these they want to cull out everything they don't agree with. But
well, I've heard some pushback that well, not pushback, but reporting that Facebook might be on a downward spiral itself. People are leaving it and not wanting to be on it. Like they just lost CrossFit. CrossFit had a page, and they left after Facebook banned one of their smaller pages. So Facebook might not even be a thing in a certain amount of time.
But what Facebook does have going for it, it's the best place right now for groups. There's really nothing better. It's a lot better than Yahoo groups, I think, because you can have a lot more outreach here. So Facebook's still pretty big, though. And yeah, I think just the regular Facebook activities are maybe diminishing a little bit, but the group activities is pretty solid, I think, on Facebook. Okay.
One thing I wanted to say is that we have to climb to the top of the tree and take a broader view. Humanity right now is in this point of stress where they're being drawn by the energy of the age of Aquarius, and the people live in fear are drawing themselves back to the past. And so we have this going on within humanity. And those of us who have this forward-looking view, we have to be inclusive. We have to begin to bring together all of those new age thoughts that support this dawning of the Aquarian age, and that's what I tried to do. And I've looked into almost every one of these teachers, and I find that they all say the same thing, but they speak from a different array makeup or a different point of view. Yeah. So we have to be inclusive and not say that, well, one is better or one is worse. They all have their point of service.
Yeah, the trick though is to get them to cooperate together on a common goal, and that's the hard part. Now, in theory, all these esoteric groups are, in theory, they all say what Ed just said. But in practice, it's quite a bit different. Now, if what we want to do, what a group needs to do is allow people with different opinions to come in. Now, what's difficult about this is that when you have a group, you do have to have a certain amount of censorship on it, because you just can't have people coming in and talking about boring stuff or just anything, or things that are overwhelming with, say, if you're trying to talk serious Alice A. Bailey stuff, somebody wants to come talk about flying saucers, and maybe it's completely off the wall stuff. It can be disruptive. So the monitors do have to exercise a certain amount of control, but they have to also allow a certain amount of latitude for other people to come in with different views to kind of stimulate with different ideas, or ideas that can advance, or maybe a different interpretation of an ancient wisdom or whatever. And this is where the problem is. Everybody wants to run a tight ship because they feel obligated to keep their ideal pure. And more important than the pure ideal is the new revelation that is around the corner, or maybe a little bit step up in consciousness, and that's where we want to go for. So the first thing, we as a group, what I'm trying to do with the groups I'm in charge of, and I've got four groups really. This one here, the Keys group is the main group. That's kind of a general net. And then we have an esoteric group, and then we have an esoteric political group. And these all allow for people to come in and share new ideas I may not even agree with, but ideas that maybe will stimulate conversation. And so this is my part in trying to bring synthesis, and I'm trying to, and hopefully this will encourage other groups to do the same thing. Because, like I say, the problem has been, you go on other groups, you would like to work with them, you'd like to say some things, and then you say some things, and then you get kicked off. So it makes this cooperation almost impossible. If you can't go on another group and say some things, innocent things, within their guidelines, within their rules, but you still get kicked off. And so it makes it very difficult to create synthesis and cooperation. And so I don't know of any group out there that is really into synthesis, any esoteric group. But now there's some general ones out there, that general New Age ones that just allow anyone to say anything they want, pretty much, and a couple of them is very popular with over 100,000 members, several of them. And so, but they're not, don't have a agenda. Some of them are just say anybody with light come in and share it, and those groups are quite successful, except the ones with a lot of activity on, as soon as you post something there, your post disappears within an hour because there's so many people active on it. So, but anyway, there's something out there for everybody. But the most difficult ones to deal with are the esoteric groups with a strong ideal in their mind as to how things should be. Now, Tibetan talks about the New Age groups, and he says, the members of this group of New Age workers will, however, possess certain general characteristics. They will impose no enforced dogmas of any kind, and will lay no emphasis upon doctrine or authorities. And this is a little bit of a problem with some of the groups out there, as they say, if you post something that they think goes contrary to their dogma, then they throw you off. And that's not where we're supposed to be. He says they not to lay a lot of emphasis on doctrine or authority. He says they are not interested in any personal authority, nor do they rest back upon traditional authority, whether religious, scientific, cultural, or any form of imposed truth. Modes of approach to reality will be recognized, and each will be free to choose his own. No discipline will be imposed by these workers upon those who seek to cooperate with them. And the New Age groups, the esoteric groups out there, don't don't really impose discipline on so much, so they're headed the right direction in that area. What's that?
I say that makes a lot of sense to me. No discipline will be imposed by these workers who seek to cooperate with them. That's, I think you're on to something there. Keep going. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, those people are the ones that I always recognize and name, and they agree. I call them seekers, and right off, we're on the same page. Seekers, yeah.
Yeah, they, I guess the discipline they do sometime impose, or they just throw people off that seeks to cooperate with them sometimes.
You know, they say brevity is the soul of wit, and sometimes it's possible that what you post may be too long and too abstract for some people to want to go through.
Yeah, true. Okay, so he says the ideas of any one person or leader as to how the units in his particular sphere of activity should live and work, should mediate and eat, will be regarded of no special value. The members of this new group work esoterically with souls and deal not with the details of the personality lives of the aspirants they seek to inspire. So the new groups are fairly loose. They will teach. They will put things out there. He says they're supposed to allow people in, and people who want to cooperate can come in and try to do their thing and not have a discipline imposed upon them. In other words, not throw them off for beginners. And now, like say, you can understand somebody getting discipline if they come in and they're very disruptive and they got an agenda, they want to sell Amway or something like that. Then you have to deal with those type of people. I've only thrown one guy off the keys since I've been on it here on Facebook over the past couple of years, and that was a guy that was going on and on about how Hitler was a great guy. And I finally threw him off. That was just way too far removed from what we want to put emphasis on. But outside of that guy, I haven't really thrown anybody off. I do delete some posts that are kind of out there and not on the subject. But outside of that, I try to be very open to people that disagree. A lot of people have told me they would like me to throw Vince off the keys because he's always asking all kinds of questions and trying to prove me wrong on a lot of things, and that irritates a number of people. But on the other hand, I don't think he's infringed enough to get thrown off. So plus he kind of keeps me on my toes. So anyway, so this is a difficulty we have of trying to find common ground with other groups and other individuals. We here have found common ground with each other, and that's at least a start. And if a group itself can find a harmony within itself, then they can influence other groups to be in harmony. If other groups see us as setting a good example, then perhaps we will have the day when they will come to us and want to cooperate with us or do something together with us. I've had two groups, because of my postings, though, on a positive note, make me an administrator. One group of famous quotations liked my quote so much that they made me administrator, and they got, I think, about 10,000 members. So I am now administrator of that group, and one other group into kind of new age light and that type of stuff made me administrator. The guy really likes me there. So I'm not being thrown off everywhere. I've actually been added as administrator to 2 groups that are that really like me. So there's positive things going on out there, and so these 2 groups that have included me are to be complimented for being synthetic. And okay, the new disciples, he says, will not seek to impose their will or disciplines on others, but will seek to stimulate the soul. And he says the groups aren't supposed to put a lot of emphasis on black and white details. Like, even though he says that a vegetarian diet is desirable, he says this is not something that group leaders should enforce. And neither should they enforce something like celibacy or marriage, or tell people who they're going to marry or what type of people they're marry. In other words, he's putting a lot of emphasis on the principle of freedom, that the group leaders and the new groups that are surfacing won't be like the old cults in the past, but they will have a lot of latitude for allowing free will and open discussion in the group. He says the person will brook no prostitution of the powers of the body to the grosser satisfactions. Here he's speaking of the disciple, what's desirable. Nor will he offend against established custom, nor lower the standards which the world has set for its highest and best. That's an important principle he promotes, because one of the things, when a person leaves the standard religion, he gets an idea that kind of the rebel starts coming out in him, and he thinks kind of everything in the system is bad, and he starts rebelling against it. And he often will kind of lower the standards that below what average humanity has set. Now, average humanity has certain things that they accept, which is good, like we don't believe in robbing your neighbor or raping people or murder, or basically the 10 Commandments. We don't believe in being mean-spirited or getting into drugs too much or alcohol too much, or that type of thing. There's certain standards that humanity has set, DK says, that are good, and the disciple should never do anything to lower that standard or go below that standard. But that standard has been set by humanity, he says, is good, and the disciple should be supportive of it. And there's a lot of teachers out there that are not. For instance, a lot of cult leaders will have sexual relations with everybody that they can influence, and go contrary to lower the standard that even average humanity has set for itself. He says the disciple should never do this. He needs to support the highest good that humanity has set for itself, and not diminish that. He says 2 rules of life must be taught. He says we must focus on the new and desirable instead of criticizing, attacking, and tearing down the old ways and structures. And this is done by creating a balance between conservatives and liberals, because the conservatives want to conserve everything and the liberals want to change everything. Now, not all change is good, and not everything in the past is bad. So we need to hold on to those things in the past which are good, and not destroy the things from the past that are good, but to build on the good things in the past. And the second, he says, is to be as nonpartisan as possible, not be anti or pro so much as these. When you're anti and pro stuff, you come out, I'm anti this or I'm pro this. He says it breeds division. But try to see the synthesis, the things that will bring people together rather than bring people apart. Okay, we didn't get very far today, but is there any questions before we wrap things up?
I wanted to mention that Eric McDarby, who is a Keys member and also an associate member in the Blue Triad, he and I started a club in Second Life Virtual Reality that's called the Gathering Oak. And that club is sort of overshadowed by the Keiki Knights, who are sort of a new age group. But all of a sudden, in the last week or two, we've had this influx of new people that want to be DJs or hostesses or dancers or whatever at the club. And it's almost as if they have a slightly invisible sign or something above their head that says seeker.
Yeah.
Like when they want to talk to me, they start bringing up stuff that is Keiki Knight material, and it's like, oh man, I have to put this person on. This is a potential, this Padawan or whatever. This student wants to be one of our knights here, you know. And it's like, all of a sudden, just within the last couple of weeks, everybody that I'm meeting over there wants to be philosophical, wants to help other people, wants to be, you know, advance spiritually. And it's like, wow. It's like, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, any other comments or questions before we wrap it up here?
Well, I want to say that we have to realize we stand on the head and shoulders of all the best teachers of the past with a view for the future. And we have to have that forward-looking view and see that all the avatars and the teachers of the past have given us the foundation from which we build.
Yeah, and I notice, Ed, that you post a lot of things in a number of groups that are that the things that you post, you try and post things that in one group that other groups will appreciate. So you're trying to be synthetic, and you got to be complimented on that. And do you ever get anything negative from your post, or is it mostly positive?
Well, there's only one group. It's called the Theosophy of San Diego. There's one guy on there who posts all this stuff to berate Alice Bailey. Yeah. And he and I have had some interplay between each other.
Yeah. You really not the type of guy that goes and looks for trouble. So if trouble finds you, well, they probably deserve it. So anyway, appreciate everybody coming, and good group today, and we will see you next Sunday at 2:00.
And we're gonna get that debate video real soon, right, JJ?
Okay, I'll post that for you guys. I'll put it on the molecular group.
Nice.
Great. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Happy Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pass out flowers.
Enjoy your weekend.
Live long and prosper.
Namaste.